In this lesson, we're going to cover installing VirtualBox into your computer. So if you're at home and you want to install other operating systems into your PC, if you have a PC that's capable, um, one solution is to use VirtualBox. We have used VMware, but if you don't have access to that, VirtualBox is a free download. As you can see, I'm on the VirtualBox website. I'm not on it yet, but I will be in a moment. I googled VirtualBox up here, and I'm going to click on download. So it's the first result within Google.
Here's what I found.
And Google is, I have my my phone on at the moment, and it just responded to me. Isn't that interesting? I'll try to move that away. Okay, so on here we have the different platforms, and we can click on downloads. And you see within here there's a download. There is a download for Windows. So I am going to click on that now. And down in the corner, it's downloading, and it should be downloaded in a few minutes. But I actually have it installed, so let's not wait for the download. So we'll minimize this, get this out of the way, and look for the VirtualBox icon. And here it is. It says Oracle VM VirtualBox. So let me click on that. So this is after it's been installed. And I'm going to ignore this. I have a little bit of an error on my Ubuntu install. So anyway, let's go through now and add a virtual machine. Actually, before you do that, let me open my browser up, and what we would need to do then is find an ISO of the operating system we're going to install. So in this case, I'm going to install Server 2012 R2. So what I did up here in Google, I did a Google search for Microsoft Server 2012 ISO. So the first result on here will take you to the Evaluation Center, and click on that. By the way, you can get a number of the Windows ISOs here. And then you see on here I have quite a few different choices. Right down here we have Server 2012 R2. Above it we have versions of Server 2016 as well. So, and also Server 2019. So all of these server versions are available. We can download as an ISO, and you have to go, it asks you a few questions down here when we want to select the ISO rather than the Azure or the Virtual Lab version of it. And then it'll take you through. You have to actually register through Microsoft, but then you're able to download it. So let's close that. And over on my downloads, I do have a copy of the ISO. Okay, just have to pause for a moment. Here, up here is the ISO of Server 2012 R2. Let me stretch that out a bit. So that's what that's the file you'll actually get if you download 2012 R2. You can see in here it's a 64-bit version. Let me open up VirtualBox, and I had this open already. So in here we're going to create a new virtual machine. So let's click on New, and let's give it a name. Server 2012 R2. Let's change it down here, and let's take a look for it. Okay. Yeah, there it is right there. Server 2012 64-bit. So that's what we're going to install. And let's click on next. Let's allocate 2 gig to it. That should be sufficient. Next, let's see, create a virtual hard drive, 50 gig. I think I got 50 gig available. That should be more than enough. I would say about 32 gig is enough for your install, but if you want to leave a little extra room, that's fine. So let's create the virtual hard drive. And we have 3 different formats. We have the native VirtualBox format, which is a VDI. We have a VHD virtual hard drive, which is the Microsoft format. So in theory, that should work with you should be able to mount that in Hyper-V as well. And a VMDK, which is the VMware format. Just for now, we'll leave it as a VDI. Okay, and this you can allocate the disk size dynamically, so it'll only use what it needs up to that 50 gig or fixed size. Let's go to fixed size. I'm going to actually want to make sure that is allocated. Let's click on next, and please type the name of the new virtual hard drive. So we're going to leave the virtual hard drive. Let's just put VHD here for virtual hard drive. Yeah, so we know that. And then I'm sure we could change location. It's going to be by default in VirtualBox VMs. So that's fine. And let's create the virtual machine. And I'm going to pause the video here because I don't want you to have to wait through 3 minutes of watching the graph move. Okay, and we're back. That took about 6 or 7 minutes, so we've jumped ahead in time, and now you can see we can have excuse me, we have our virtual machine installed and powered off. So let's give it a go. Let's start it up. And we'll give it a moment. Okay, so we need to select the startup disk here. Okay, just let me make a correction. We've actually installed our virtual hard drive at the moment. So now that we have a virtual hard drive, we can actually start installing the Server 2012 operating system. So what we need to do here, it's not on the D drive. This would be as if we put a DVD in our DVD drive. So what we have to do, because we're using an ISO, is click on here, the little folder, and point to the location of the ISO file. So the ISO file is in downloads and in a folder that this is where I downloaded it to, a folder called ISO within the downloads folder. So here it is. Here's the actual ISO that we downloaded from the Microsoft website. So let's click open here. And then let's click start. So here you see now we have our virtual computer booting up, and it's going through the typical installations if you'd put a DVD in your computer, and we're installing Server 2012 R2. We can click off on these messages. This just tells us about the mouse integration and so forth, but I'll leave them on for now. And we'll put this down here. And we'll go through the typical process here, which most of us are familiar with by now, the installation of Server 2012. In fact, if you're not up to the 2012 section yet, very much the same as installing Windows 7 or Windows 10. So click on Install Now. and we'll follow the wizard through. I may pause every once in a while just to speed this installation up for you. All right, here we have 4 choices. We have Standard Edition Server Core, Standard Edition Server with GUI, Data Center Edition Server Core, and Data Center Edition server with GUI. Notice they're all 64-bit now. We no longer have the option of a 32-bit operating system. So 32-bit is pretty much the thing of the past now, especially with servers. So we are going to take, we can either take the Standard Edition or the Data Center Edition. The difference really has to do with how many virtual hard drives you can run, how many virtuals you can run within the server. Standard Edition would limit you to 2, and you wouldn't have that limit in the Data Center Edition. Of course, if you're actually purchasing this, the Data Center Edition would come at a much higher cost. So, but we do want the GUI version because the core will simply give us just a command line. So everything has to be done through the command line if you're running server core. Let's click next. And agree to the license. Yeah, we agree, right? We've read that. And we'll move on. Okay, this is a little bit of a confusing part. Almost always we're going to do the custom install. Very rarely would you ever want to do an upgrade. An upgrade is kind of it. Well, think of it this way. You know, if you had a server running for years with an older Microsoft Server operating system, would you really want to install a brand new operating system on it? Because over the years it might have developed issues and so forth. Much better to do a clean install. And to do a clean install, we choose the custom option down here. Here is the 50 gig that we set aside within VirtualBox, and we'll use it all. We won't go through here and create a new one. It will let the installation allocate the entire 50 gig. And because we're using an ISO, you see the first part, copying the Windows files, went very quick. Doing an installation from an ISO is usually much faster than doing from your DVD, because you're reading directly off the hard drive. But I'll pause the installation right here so you don't have to wait through the entire thing. Well, we're back. It looks like we're through the main part of the installation. I think I said I was going to pause the installation. I actually meant, of course, pause the recording. So we're back now. So let me put in a password and let's get going. Okay. Let's put one in that I can actually remember. Okay, and finish. Okay, so the question is, what do we do next? We have, let me get rid of these. We're at the main screen. Okay, one thing we can't do, we can't actually press Control-Alt-Delete, because that, let me show you what happens when we press Control-Alt-Delete. It actually brings up your host. So the virtual has to be controlled by a different key sequence. And in VirtualBox, I believe it's the right Control and Delete, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Okay, so the right Control key and the Delete key on your keyboard in VMware. So let's take a look around here for a moment. I know there's something I need to do. Okay, what I need to do next is insert the guest editions CD into my server 2012 operating systems. This is the equivalent of putting VMware tools in if this was a VMware virtual. So we're going to click on that, and actually I may need to log in first. Okay, and we'll get in there. Should probably make the screen bigger. Well, come on. Okay, it's coming up. It's just taking a moment. Okay. Okay, so I want to see if that worked. What we'll just say yes to the network. That's fine for now. We'll talk about setting up IP addresses and so forth in another lesson. I think we're going a little bit long here, but anyway, what I need to do. Come on, whenever it gets done, is I need to click on the File Explorer, and yes, actually it did. You can see right here it did load the CD for the virtual editions. And by the way, that's not an actual real CD. That's part of the VirtualBox installs, but you add it again that we did up here by going to Device and going to Insert Guest Edition CD Image. So it's actually an image. Okay, so then we double click on it, and then we're going to do the we'll try the AMD 64-bit one. Alright, that looks like this is the one we need. Okay, and just basically following through the wizard. And it shouldn't take very long. This will give you extra support. You can see drivers and so forth in here. So it gives you more integrated support for the operating system into VirtualBox, just the same way as you get that greater support by putting VMware tools in VMware. Alrighty, so it looks like it wants to reboot, so let's do that. And let's see how long this takes to come back up. We're getting there. Okay, so this is a normal boot of Server 2012 R2 now. So the next thing we do when this thing comes up is we're going to make a snapshot. Since this is a fresh install, we know everything should be good on here. So by making a snapshot after the initial installation, we have something to go back to should we have any problems, should we install things or do things that we want to undo. Again, to get in here, it's not Control-Alt-Delete, but it's the right Control and Delete key, and that will bring up the login. Okay, and we're back in again in a moment. Okay, and I think the server manager should probably pop up in a moment. Okay, and it's give us a nice full screen now after we put in the guest integration tools. So any moment, the server manager, which is typical of your initial installation of Server 2012. By the way, when I say Server 2012, this is Server 2012 R2. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to do a snapshot, and I may end up pausing the video for a moment because the button is not in the usual place, so let me take a look for it and come back in a moment. Okay, well, it was a pretty obvious place under machine. By the way, this area up at the top is VirtualBox. So the down here is the actual virtual machine, the Server 2012. So let's click on take a snapshot, and let's give it a name that makes sense right here. Snapshot 1 is fine, but I'm going to call it. Oops. Initial. And if I can actually type. All right. Okay, and obviously I can't type at the moment. Can't type and talk at the same time. Okay, so Server 2012 it's our first install. So we can create a snapshot right here. And it'll just take a moment to save the system state. And I think we're good. Let's just take a quick look around here and see everything looks good. Okay, let's take a look at the control panel. It's thinking. Okay. We change the view, which I like to do, to large icons. And let's take a look at the administrative tools. And let's take a look at computer management. Whenever it decides to come up, here we go. And I just want to take a look at the device manager. So everything looks good here. Let's just open up a few things, and you can see right here it's a VirtualBox graphics adapter. So by putting in those guest tools, we've got it looks like we've got good driver support right here. Anyway, that looks good. Let me minimize this. So we're gonna call it an end to the lesson in a moment, but one thing I'd like to point out for everybody, if I can find it, is you guys should take the time to look at the LinkedIn Learning lesson. It goes much more in detail on installing Server 2012 in VirtualBox. So the course to look for is Windows Server 2012 installation and configuration, and I'll be sure to link that in Canvas. Signing off for now, and I'll see you in the next lesson.